Hey guys, still here. Today in Steel Division we're going to have a look at Baron von Boyce as he's commanding one of the new divisions that have been entered into the game. This is the 17th SS-Panzergrenadier group, and the Panzergrenadiers are an infantry-heavy bunch. They really focus on infantry tactics. They have some Stuks to back them up, and yes, the game does consider the Stuk to be a tank, which, well, you could argue is not really accurate. I believe they were, well, their abbreviation is Sturmgeschütz, so they're a storm gun or an assault gun. I'm not sure if they would actually be classed as tanks, but the game had to put them in somewhere, so that is where they put them. And thereby, I'm going to refer to the Stuks as tanks, despite the fact that it is not entirely accurate. Anyways, it's a 1v1 here against Nadergator88, who is using the 3rd armor. And when I looked at this match, I thought, oh, this is going to be tricky, because the 3rd armor is known for very fast and very good mobility. They have infantry that's decent, and they can do quite a nice number on an infantry group if they're able to push through. So, especially on a map like this, map control, and especially once it's conquest, which it is, of course, map control through towns and tree lines is going to be critical. And that's exactly what Baron is going to be using. On the left he has a smaller group. This is the KFZ-70, one of the new units. It's just a transport vehicle, no guns. He also has a couple of Schwimm. I'm thinking it's Schwimmwagen. This is one of the first amphibious vehicles in the game. You can see that by the propeller sign. Now, there are not actually any rivers in the game yet, but apparently that is coming, considering that some of these units are amphibious and can swim across rivers. Towards the middle of the map he has a small group as well, a machine gun group, infantry and an anti-tank group. And over on the right, this is where he has most of his firepower. Infantry, Stosstruppe, again one of the new units. These are 5-man squads. I wish they were 10-man squads, because then they would be absolutely fantastic. They're 5-man squads armed with machine guns or submachine guns, as well as anti-tank weapons and smoke grenades. So these guys can, if they really have to, conceal their own position using smoke, or retreat using smoke. And here you can see the one tank unit that you can get with this group in Phase A. This is the Stuk 3 F8. Now the Stuk 3 comes with a 75mm gun. It has a decent punch for a 75mm of 14 AP. Its frontal armor leaves something to be desired at 8 points. So these Stuks are not very suitable for prolonged engagements or units which can do quite a bit of damage to a tank, such as an anti-tank gun, such as tanks, or of course infantry, which will one-shot them anyway. Now, he's pushing up very quickly, and you can see that he's immediately getting 56% of the map under his control. One of the elements that really helped here is the fact that he was able to quickly grab terrain, and do that probably by giving his units orders before the game started. And of course, by doing so, you save yourself quite a bit of micromanagement later on. Now the Stuk tried to fire a couple of times at the infantry here, unfortunately immediately got wiped out thanks to the gun that is retreating here on the north end. So much for his armored unit. And now he's going to have to survive another 7.5 minutes without an armored unit. Fortunately, we have a very accurate Pak 40 75mm gun here. It was capable of firing both HE and AP rounds, so it can suppress enemy transports as well as enemy infantry should they be inside a building. Now, take note of the position of his units here, because his units have a very clever setup. Machine gun 42 here suppresses any infantry as it gets close. Then he has the Panzerschreck group, which is of course a very heavy anti-tank group here, just a 2-man squad. But they have a 250 meter range, which can quite unpleasantly surprise any vehicles that get too close. And he's going to have these Panzergrenadiers here as a bit of backup should the enemy push on this town. So pushing here is going to be difficult for the armor group. Then over here he has just one Panzergrenadier group, so his left flank is very weak. But it is still going to be able to at least hold up for a little while as the enemy comes closer. Now, he saw the enemy come in here. A couple of rifles came in. Of course, that's not the only thing. There's also a transport there, an M3HT. So he's backing up, trying to not get into a gunfight with an M3HT, which he can never hit anyways. So he's letting the enemy come to him, so that he has a good position here. And yes, the enemy will capture this building, but at least it's going to make sure that the Panzergrenadiers can do a bit more damage and hold on a little longer before they have to move. You can see they're coming in with the rifles, and these guys are immediately going to jump into the building. We're going to see a very, very short range firefight here. Now, he has a good position over here, and he's bolstered that position even further using a Führer group. This is a command infantry unit that boosts veterancy on all units nearby, such as the anti-tank gun, the machine gun nest that he has put up here, the second machine gun group, the recon group, and the IG-18, which is, I believe, a sort of infantry storm gun. They're only 45 points. Their accuracy is pretty terrible, but they are pretty useful in the role of just suppressing enemy infantry. In which case they can just use that 9 HE value of anti-infantry or suppression value at a decent range. But of course, the moment that you have one tank that says, and this is it, you're gonna get your ass handed to you. These things are only 5 strength, so 1 or 2 HE rounds will finish them off very quickly. But a position like this makes it so that it is pretty well concealed. Of course, once it starts firing, that concealment is gone, but if the enemy does get the intent of moving across this field, they're going to run into the Pak-40, the anti-infantry gun, the machine gun nests. So this town is going to be very difficult to take over. Now, on the left flank, we have that engagement that I was discussing earlier. The Panzergrenadiers are engaged with the rifles, but they've been able to hold out for so long that he has now been able to get reinforcements. And the Stoßtruppe are pushing up aggressively, killing off the enemy transport, and the rifles have either retreated or been destroyed. I saw the notification of destroyed, but I'm not sure which group that was. At least the town is still his, and Bluefor is instead trying to push up on the other side of the town, where these rifles are trying to make life difficult on the Stoßtruppe, and instead seem to be engaged with the Panzergrenadiers at long range using their machine gun 42. Now, Blue has a bit of a weird dash here inside red terrain. I don't believe that there's actually a lot of units in here, it's just that red doesn't have that much closing up their front line. So he's bringing up another Schwimmwagen with infantry inside. You can see immediately the front line starts to collapse, and if you can cut this off, then there's a very good chance it's going to be back at 51. Now, he has the Ju-87. This is a bit of a curious aircraft, in the sense that it doesn't behave like you normally would expect an aircraft to behave. These things sometimes seem to just fly over the target harmlessly, and then do a looping and come right vertical down on the target. I mean, that's what they're famous for. So that's exactly what they did. He dropped on top of the arm rifles here, and thereby making it so that these guys are no longer able to put up an effective barrage of fire onto the Panzergrenadiers here. So that hopefully there's going to be no further push on this end. And thanks to his maneuvering, he's also been able to push away this front line, and thereby regaining 50% of the map, and he had 51 for a minute there. Now in the middle we have the Panzerschreck, which managed to get a kill on an M3HT, which got way too close. Of course now it's going to get fired at, but it's going to very quickly get reconcealed due to pure lack of the enemy reconnaissance. Note the 250 meter range. These things can be very, very nasty for enemy vehicles. And this guy is just begging to get killed off. There you go. He just drove right into the Panzerschreck's range and immediately got wiped out, thereby winning another bit of terrain, as Bluefor apparently doesn't have too many vehicles on this end. Now the town here seems to be safe. Most of the engagement seems to be happening on the left side of the map, where we still have the rifles which survived the bombing run and are currently working on suppressing and killing off this Panzergrenadier group, which at this point doesn't really damage his forces that much, because he still has the Panzergrenadiers here and the Stoßtruppe there. It won't really impact the game that much if these guys die, because the front line is still going to be held. Now, note the stealth value on the Spähtruppe over here. These guys have very good stealth, and the vehicle, the M3 there, just drove by at about 175, maybe 150 meters. That is how terrible the optics on these things are. You'd say that with a gunner looking out at the vehicle like that, they should be able to see, but apparently these guys are pretty much as blind as a tank, and they really had no clue that they were being spotted by the reconnaissance infantry there. Now another Pak 40 is being delivered to the front line. It's moving up slowly, but slow is good in this sense, because you can very quickly sneak through this tree line, getting a line of sight on the M3, lining up the shot. The M3 spotted the gun. Not a problem. Gun immediately takes out the transport. Front line shifts towards Baron, or in favor of Baron. He's now at 52%. Of course, this is going to continue to do all sorts of wonky stuff. But so far, he is getting a +1. And that +1 just keeps ticking up all the way up till 2000, unless Bluford does something about that. Now, I think that Nadergator over here is making a bit of a mistake, because he's investing quite a lot of points into armored units, which then don't have a feature or don't have a purpose here, such as this M4A1. I mean, he's not going to be able to push up along this road. That's very, very difficult. But he has 130 points sitting there in the back, where it's not going to be of use to anyone. And that's not the only tank that he has over here. There's another M4 that we just saw coming in along this road. It's sitting there a little bit further back, but doesn't really have that much of a purpose. Now, we have an M5A1 coming in, and the Stoßtruppe are casually running up to it, lining up the anti-tank weapon, firing and killing off the tank. This is what these guys do. Make sure that you don't park a tank inside a tree line like that, if you don't absolutely have some sort of reconnaissance spotting for them. Because there might just be an SS Stoßtruppe here, which is going to take out your tank. Now, of course, this is the point where it's going to get more difficult for the infantry, because over here your range is 200, which means that enemy vehicles are going to be outranging you. You're going to have to hope that vehicles get close enough, and that's exactly what they're doing. But unfortunately, it's a recon vehicle that's also able to spot you, so he's forced to retreat here on the left flank. Down the middle, we're seemingly still in control of this town. The Stoßtruppe have been not really engaging that much, but they have been able to keep the transports at bay. And over on the right, another Stoßtruppe group is doing the same thing. You can see that these guys have fired a few rounds, but barely anything of note. And here too, he's using a Panzergrenadier Führer group to boost the veterancy of all the units nearby, making them more effective. And this is going to make the town even more difficult to hold on to. He's also bringing in a reconnaissance group, which is probably going to be spotting from over here, so he can get at least a little bit of early warning for the enemy to come in. There we go. And it's an M1 gun, as well as scouts. So we need to get rid of these guys, because the M1 gun really isn't that much of an issue. The M1 only carries AP rounds. They didn't give this thing any HE, so it is not capable of doing anything against infantry. And it seems that Baron knows exactly what this thing can and cannot do, as he's immediately starting to push on the M1, forcing it to retreat. And you could ask, what was the purpose of the M1 here in the first place? Because this is a tree line that a tank cannot go through, and the thing cannot take aim at infantry, so what exactly is the purpose of this unit? Because it really couldn't do anything, and thereby it's now forced to retreat and find a position where it can go hunting for some tanks. Now Baron has 53% of map control, and Blue of course is still starting to really push on him, or at least trying to make a dent in that front line of his, making it so that he's trying to get back to at least an even footing and not give Baron any more points, because Baron is already sitting at 600 points. whereas Nedergater only has 3. Now the Stoßtruppe, once again, with their murderous anti-tank weapon, immediately taking out an M3. Unfortunately, there's quite a few more where that came from. And the other M3s are now suppressing. But look at this troop concentration here. This would be a beautiful target for an airstrike. Unfortunately, he just lost sight of them, meaning that it's going to be more difficult to do an airstrike accurately, as they're now starting to move up. But we do have an aircraft coming in. Now, note the vector that this aircraft takes. Initially, you're thinking, wait, this thing is going the wrong way. It's going along a different axis. Just note what it does. It comes in, and then swoops overhead, dropping down and evacing. So this thing may look like it's going to miss entirely, and it may give you the intention that it's going to bomb something over there, whereas instead it's actually bombing something here, doing one of those strange loopings. So make sure that if you see aircraft like that, like the Ju-87, that you know what to expect, because it is not easy to predict exactly where that bomb is going to hit you. Now, Baron at 54%, and let's see where the armored group could push through if they wanted to. I'd say it's going to be doable on the left flank. He only has a Pack 40 here, and not even a recon group, just some Stoßtruppe. Of course, these guys would be able to take out some transports or maybe a tank if it gets too close. But if you orchestrate a push along this axis and bring a recon vehicle, it's going to make it more easy for the enemy to wipe out the Stoßtruppe before they get too close. The Pack 40 will do some damage, but it's not going to be a fantastic anti-tank unit. Not long enough anyway, because it's only one gun. This is an area where I would not recommend you push, because there's too much infantry and the Panzergrenadiers are just too good inside of a town. It's going to be too difficult to get through. These guys do need a bit of resupply for the machine gun though, and thereby they are slightly less effective at suppressing the enemy. You can see it's not the only group that has this issue. The spare troops have also depleted the ammunition of the MG42, correction, MG34 in their case. So don't push over here. Now, it's an armored group, so it focuses heavily on vehicles and transports and mobility. So you're going to have to focus on roads. In that case, do not push over here, because the Panzerschreck will put your vehicles down very, very quickly. And of course, this flank too is going to be too difficult to push up along to. Wouldn't recommend it. So where you could actually push with your vehicles, I'd say here. This might be the only position where you could accurately and with a pretty decent effectiveness push. Of course, you don't really know what's going on, but if you had perfect information, then this would be the easiest position to push through. Now he's bringing in an Opel Blitz, which is going to resupply all of the units that are close. And they really, really need it, because the infantry, of course, without the MG42 or the MG34, is going to be less effective. So they're quickly trying to resupply the units here. Hang on, where did it go? Did they kill it off? Curious. I thought I didn't see it die. It just disappeared. Not sure what happened there. Yeah, anyways, he's using the IG-18 here as well to try and suppress enemy transports, which it can do. Because while they are not very good at tanks, suppressing an enemy transport is very easy, because these things don't have that much armor. The M3 carries 1 armor on the rear, 1 on the side, 2 on the front. And while HE ammunition is not that effective against an against armor, it is still going to be effective enough to keep them at bay. Time for another vehicle to come in. Another gun is being brought forward quickly to try and hold on to this front line. And over on the right, he seems to be pushing up, where we have Pioneers, which are trying to get quite close here to the enemy. And they're running into a lot of these transports. Now, of course, this is the prize. This is what you want to try and kill quickly. Because if you kill the leader, then all of the other units are going to be less effective. They're going to lose that veterancy star that they have. Getting these guys killed is not going to be too easy, of course, because they're heavily entrenched. They're in the middle of the town, and getting in here means you're going to have to wipe out the M8, the M3A1. So pushing through here is going to be pretty tricky. But what we do have is the Ju-87. Unfortunately, there is way too much AA fire coming up, and the aircraft is forced to retreat. So no kill on the leader. But the good news is that we have 55% of the map under our control. So we should be fine, at least holding on to the map as we have it, and if possible, pushing out further. Now another STOS trooper here, engaged with rifles. It's a 2 versus 5 fight, but these guys have 2 stars from their veterancy and their leader, and these guys don't have any. So these guys are stressed, but these are completely pinned down, and they actually surrendered to 2 guys and to some suppressive fire here from the Panzergrenadiers. Just forcing these guys to get suppressed and making sure that there's no leader nearby will really help you out. Now, all the guns here, the Pak 40, the IG-18 are all firing at the rifles here. It's not the only rifle group that they have though. There's another rifles group coming in from this side with another one just in the field. So we're going to have quite a lot of work trying to keep all these guys at bay. The IG-18 fires and suppresses the armed rifles here. They are really not having a good day. And we are now in phase C. We can now bring in more units. Note, however, that Baron is not bringing in any armored units. He has 1 in the field here, a Stuk 4. I believe that's the extent of the units that he has. Now, this deck, as far as the deck building goes, doesn't really give you a lot of flexibility in the armored section or the tank section. I believe you can bring in just 1 Stuk in phase 1 or phase A, a couple in phase B, and phase C you can bring in the rest of them. But it's still not a lot of units. You can see that he's keeping it here slightly in reverse or in the rear, making sure that it's not going to get detected or not going to get shot at immediately. In the meanwhile, we have quite the engagement coming from Nadergator, and what I'm not seeing Nadergator do is either suppress this area with HE ammunition from mortars or artillery or airstrikes, and he's not using smoke screens. And thereby all the infantry that he's devoted to this push is getting very easily wiped out. Had he put up a smoke screen, it would have been more easy for his forces to get close and potentially take out, for example, the IG-18, which is doing quite a number on his infantry. Because at this range they're going to be quite accurate. They have 2 stars from veterancy, and of course from the footer that's over here. And it's being constantly resupplied. It has a short range, so it doesn't have to focus on trying to hit stuff, let's say, at maximum range, which makes it even more accurate. So this IG-18 is causing all sorts of trouble for him. Then the Pak 40-75 is also suppressing the transports as they come in, and of course with its HE also engaging enemy infantry if there are no transports to kill. So this is, I gotta say, a pretty poorly orchestrated push by Nadergator. Use smoke screens and use artillery to first soften up your target, then deploy the smoke using the same artillery to make sure it's going to be quite a bit easier for your units to get close. Offload them close enough, and these guys are going to have a way more difficult time suppressing and holding off the assault there. Now over on the right we have a jumbo. These things, as far as I have seen so far, I believe are the most heavily armored units in the game, at 21 frontal armor. That means there are very few units that actually have the penetration value that's high enough to kill them off. Of course, yes, maybe a tank or maybe an aircraft can come in from an unexpected angle and try to get a kill that way, but it still won't be easy. Now he's bringing in both aircraft. One is forced to retreat, the other one keeps pushing forward, but unfortunately also falls prey to the enemy AA and is forced to fall back. as the enemy is trying to come in with a P-38 Lightning, but is also forced to fall back due to the fire that's coming up from the Red AA forces, which is this one, the Flak Vierling. 4 accuracy, 444 rounds a minute rate of fire, and note that this is not just an AA gun. If enemy infantry comes into range, well, they're gonna have a bad day. Because these things put up a ferocious amount of fire. And the IG value here is 12. So enemy infantry that gets into range, such as this machine gun, despite the fact that it is entrenched in a building, its stress meter is going up very quickly. Unfortunately, it's just as quickly suppressing the flak fielding over here, but these guys, especially if they're dealing with infantry out in the open, they're going to very, very quickly suppress them. If not, just chew them up and break them up. Now, the map is still 55% in control of Baron von Boyce. So he's doing a good job here, keeping them at bay. And of course, once the infantry has taken a position, it's going to be pretty difficult to push them out of it once again. That is the strength of the infantry. Now, with artillery you can not only suppress the enemy infantry, but you can also break apart their buildings. If you hit a building with artillery enough times, it will just disintegrate, and thereby you will not have the cover anymore that the building was initially providing. So if you have an infantry unit that's heavily entrenched, just keep pounding the town with artillery, and you're going to find that at some point there's no building left, and the infantry is going to have to abandon it. Of course, if they weren't killed off already, then if they're still there, you might be very, very easily and very happily surprised with how easy it is to push them out. Now on the left we have another 1917 HMG, which is taking fire from Panzergrenadiers, and unfortunately the MG42 cannot join in on the fun, because that would be a nice suppression value as well. But it's sitting here quite comfortably in their building, and these guys are being blocked by line of sight from this structure. Still 45%, so we're still getting a very steady supply of points, 1355 out of 2000. And there is really not that much that he can do at the moment. You can see that Nadergator seems pretty much hell-bent on trying to push onto areas which are heavily entrenched, which is very curious. Oh, nice kill there. He got the Jumbo. The Jumbo got, I believe, an ammunition explosion. And the aircraft that did that was the ME-109G2, which unfortunately I cannot pull up the unit stats for. But I believe that this is one of those tank killers, and it did exactly what was advertised. It wiped out that tank. And now, with the loss of the tank, I think that that weakened the front line a little bit, as some of these units are also falling back. Now Baron was in brief control of 57%, and now 56%, and there's 57 again. So if he can get this up a bit higher, at 58 he's going to have a +2. But it's keeping... yeah, it's 56. It keeps going up and down. I wouldn't recommend pushing along this town too much, because it's probably too heavily entrenched. But so is his forest. I mean, just look at this. Would be a very easy and very nice artillery strike. And Blue 4, especially this group, does have some really nice artillery. So if you would have, for example, an artillery observer, then this area would be a nice strike for one of those off-map artillery units. Would pretty much guarantee you quite a few kills, as some of these units have also already taken quite a few hits. Panzergrenadiers down to 2 man. They're not going to be that effective anymore. They're not going to be very survivable anymore. And if you take out the leader in the process, then all of these guys lose their veterancy. Now, this is still a bit of a curious area here. It seems that Blue just has no units over here. And, oh, this is a problem. This is one of those units that I never know how to pronounce correctly. Pretty much, no matter how I pronounce it, I'm going to get corrected. So, we're going to call it the rocket launcher tank for now. And you can correct me all in the comments down below. Look at the devastation that he's causing onto this town. This is the type of artillery that I was worried that was going to come into play. Unfortunately, you can only bring it in later in the match. I believe it's a Phase C unit, and now you know why. Because it just turned this peaceful little village that was quite heavily fought over into a graveyard where a lot of the defending infantry died. He lost the IG-18 gun. His Pak 40's down to 1 man. His infantry is everyone's pinned down here in this town. There's no getting out of it. But he has managed to get 59% of the map under his control, and he is now getting a +2, so his ticker is going up even faster. With just 3 minutes left on this game, I don't think that we're going to see any more pushes from Blue 4. Now, if you are playing the Panzergrenadiers, as you can see by Baron's use of them, focus on choke points. This is a choke point. This is going to be difficult for vehicles to go through. The infantry could have pushed up here and there, but they were already suppressed by units that were in positions such as these. This town is critical for moving up along this road and this road, but you could argue, well, this road's not going to be an issue because it's locked down, and this road is potentially too far away from the town to be of any use. Yes, but it is a position pretty much along the middle of the western flank, and thereby it's going to be a very important area for map control, for pushing that border away from yours and getting more points for conquest or more income and destruction. So getting this town is absolutely worth it. On the right flank, again, go for the town as quickly as you can. It's going to be heavily fought over and you might not gain full control of it, but make sure that you at least get some control over it with infantry. And especially if you're using the Panzergrenadiers, be sure to use a Panzer leader. Whichever type you're using is, well, it doesn't really matter. Whether it's a Pioneer footer or what do we have here? A Panzergrenadier footer, it doesn't matter, so long as you have a leader. And the leader will boost the effectiveness of your forces very, very nicely. So make sure you entrench the position first, then bring in a leader, and then you're fine. Look at this, he even has an anti-tank gun standing by. I wouldn't be surprised if that's another 40. Unfortunately, it only shows you the transport. But it has 3 stars of veterancy. 1 coming in from the leader, and a couple more from the base veterancy of the unit. So be very, very concerned when you have a gun like that firing at you. In the rear, he also has a Grille and a Pak 40-75. I don't believe the Stug has ever done anything. Yeah, it fired 2 HE rounds, but that's it. And he has a couple of further suppressor or support units which are standing by for additional support. Another IG-18, unfortunately very heavily wounded, so not being able to do much. But if the enemy keeps pushing, then they're going to run into reinforcements pretty quickly. And it seems that he's preparing another push. Not exactly sure. He's resupplying the Calliope, which is starting to... Oh, actually, he's only reloading, so he won't be able to fire that in the next 20 seconds. Bounce comes in. Oh, the Stug's gonna have a party. Let's see, can you get a kill before the match ends? Hit. Nope, suppressed. 7 seconds. Make it quick, Stug. Hit. Ammo explosion. Yep, he got him. Beautiful. Just before the map ended, or the match ended. Anyways, that was Baron von Boyce against Nedergator. Nedergator didn't use his mobility advantage, and Baron von Boyce used his infantry entrenching and surprise attacks advantage to very well hold control of pretty much all areas of the map, reacted to pushes very adequately, and thereby got a very high kill-death ratio of 3-1, and of course getting the 2,000 points that's needed for victory in the conquest on one-on-one. So, that is the 17th SS Panzer Group. Let me know what your thoughts are. Have you made an effective play with them, or found to be too easy to kill off? Let me know in the comments, and we're going to have a bit of a discussion there. If you have a replay that you want me to take a look at, then there's a link in the description that you can use to send in your video, or at least your replay file, and I'll consider turning it into a video. More info on that in the link. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you soon for more.